Substitute Bill introduction.
Those bills are set down for first reading. The House now comes to questions for oral answer, and the first question stands in the name of John Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. What advice has he received on the impact global economic developments are having on the New Zealand economy?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the global outlook remains uncertain. Europe in particular continues to grapple with long-standing problems of excessive debt, with significant decisions being made in Europe this week. They have, however, demonstrated an ability to maintain stability while dealing with deep-seated long-term problems. Growth is expected to be maintained at reasonable levels in our second-largest trading partner, China. The outlook for Australia is less positive than it was, but it still remains one of the faster-growing developed economies.
Point of order, the Honourable John Banks.
Speaker.
Order. A point of order has been called. Order.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable John Banks.
The parliamentary opposition during the answer from the Minister were yapping out, tidy yourself up. Why don't you tidy yourself up? Now, I make no comment about that, but I think you're doing a great job and should berate them.
Order. Order. The member does remind members in the House when they say you, they are referring to the Speaker, and I did look at the member who made that interjection. He seemed unaware of what he had actually said. Supplementary question. Oh, sorry, point of order, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr. Speaker, if you look at the question, it asks to the Minister, what advice has he received? Well, we're still waiting to hear what that advice was. We just heard his opinion of how the rest of the world is.
Well, one assumes that that is the advice he's received, that he... Order. There's a further point of order. Right, Honourable Winston Peters.
You might assume that, but for the rest of us in the country, we'd like to know what was the advice he got and where did he get it from?
Order. The point of order has been raised. Had the question asked what advice he had gotten, where did he get it from, there may have been a different answer, but the question didn't actually ask that. John Hayes, supplementary question. Point of order, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
The question is, what advice has he received? Now, you could pad it out by saying, and from whom, and what day did you get it? But strictly speaking, it's a simple question, and I would like to know what advice did he receive, not what his views are of the international economy.
Order. Well, during question time, the Right Honourable Gentleman has absolutely that right to ask that question. And he can ask specifically for the source of the advice received. That's absolutely why supplementary questions are allowed. John Hayes, supplementary question.
Mr. Speaker, in the light of New Zealand's increasing economic links with Asia Pacific, what are the immediate prospects for APEC economies?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the immediate prospects for these economies on our doorstep are reasonably good. The IMF is forecasting growth of 4.2% for the APEC area in 2012 and 4.5% in 2013. This is considerably faster than developed economies and compares to forecast world growth of around 3.5%. 10 APEC countries will grow by 4% or more this year, which means that in those countries there will be more people with bigger incomes who are willing to pay more for our products, and that's good news for New Zealand.
John Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How are international observers viewing the immediate outlook for China, and how will this impact on New Zealand's growth prospects?
The Honourable, point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, this Minister has no responsibility for international people. None at all. If he was asked about advice or reports or something like that, he might have responsibility. But
point of order is being heard.
But, Sir, we've been told that we've got to be straight and down the line and have questions within standing orders and Speaker's rulings. And, Sir, when they are written patsies, there is no excuse.
Order. The member was fine up to that point. Order. The member makes a perfectly reasonable point that ministers can be asked their opinions about matters, but if there's no direct responsibility for what they're being asked about, probably the question should refer to advice or reports that the minister may have received. John Hayes.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order,
The second part of my question, and I'll just repeat it, and how will this impact on New Zealand's growth prospects? I think that is a very fair question to put to the Minister of Finance.
The member makes a fair point in response that the latter part of the question indeed asked that, and that is absolutely within the minister's responsibility. The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, given that it is among the fastest growing economies in the world, what happens with China does matter to New Zealand. There seems to be a range of views, but a general view would be that China's growth will be a bit lower this year than it was last year. Partly because of the impact of lower demand in Europe. The way this impacts on New Zealand's growth prospects is that it is our second largest trading partner, and Chinese demand for our products will determine our income to a significant extent, and China is Australia's largest trading partner and remains our largest trading partner, so how Australia does is affected by China.
John Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, what other reports has he received on New Zealand's economic prospects, given the significant challenges faced by economies in other parts of the world?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, I recently met with representatives of the credit rating agencies Moody's and Standard & Poor's. They've noted the good progress the government is making in getting its own finances in order and returning to surplus, while many other countries face many more years of deficits and rising debt. They note that our moderate growth rate and our positive household savings rate compare favourably to that of many other developed countries, but they reiterate our need to reduce our high levels of household debt, which remain as yet New Zealand's single biggest vulnerability to international economic events.
Question number 2, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
This question is to the Minister.